Story 1. The Father's Return. The doorbell shrieked at 2:47 a.m. on Halloween night. I checked my phone, ready to curse the drunk pranksters, but when I looked through the peephole, my heart nearly stopped. He stood on my porch, flashing the warm smile I hadn't seen in over a month. "Dad?" I yanked the door open and threw my arms around him, but his skin felt ice cold through the jacket, and his face was so pale it was nearly grey. We tried to pretend things were normal in the kitchen, but the tension was thick like a curse. Dad kept glancing at the windows, and every time a car drove by, his entire body would tense up. "Dad, seriously, what's wrong? You're acting weird." "Nothing, Princess." Suddenly, the doorbell went off again. Dad's face went white as a sheet. "Don't answer that," he hissed. "Whoever's out there wants to hurt you bad. Don't go near that door, Camila." The doorbell didn't stop, and then came the sound of violent pounding and rattling, as if someone was trying to rip the door off its hinges. They were desperate to get in. "I'm calling the cops. They won't make it. End time. Go to the basement now." Before I could protest, Dad grabbed my arm with impossibly strong force, shoving me towards the basement door. "Go hide." The door slammed shut and locked behind me, trapping me in the dark. The next 20 minutes were hell. I lay slumped against the door, listening to pure chaos erupt above. Furniture crashed, glass shattered. I could hear Dad shouting. Then the intrude, a screaming back. I was shaking, picturing the crowbar against my 52-year-old father's bad back. "Please, God, don't let him hurt my dad," I whispered, tears streaming. The sounds worsen, Ed, culminating in an ear-piercing shriek, not human, but like an animal being slaughtered. It went on forever before cutting off into dead silence. The police had to break down the basement door. Upstairs, the living room was a war zone. Furniture overturned, glass everywhere, and blood splattered on the walls. They found the intruder curled up in the corner, babbling about a fiery spirit. "Your dad, ma'am, there's no one else here." Just then, my phone rang. It was Mom. "Camila, your father. He had a heart attack at work tonight. He's gone, baby. He died at 1:30 a.m. The phone slipped from my hands. 1:30 a.m. An hour and 17 minutes before he showed up at my door. I looked at the ruined room, the blood on the walls, and the intruder still muttering about seeing a dead man. He came to protect me. Even in death, Dad had kept his promise. The intruder was raving about the ghost who had appeared from nowhere with eyes that looked right through him. The cops thought he was having a psychotic break, but I knew better. A father's love can defy even God. Story 2. The Clown of Granger Hollow. I was 15, visiting my grandparents in Granger Hollow, a small town where the annual harvest fair held a sinister atmosphere under flickering torches. I wandered alone when I felt a tap. I turned and nearly jumped out of my skin. Standing behind me was a clown straight out of a nightmare. His costume was patched and faded, as if rotting in a forgotten tomb. The makeup was thick and cracked, sporting a horrifically wide painted smile, and his pale blue eyes seemed to count my every blink. He held out a piece of candy covered in cat hair and dust. "Want some candy, kiddo?" he grinned. The absolute wrongness of his presence made me back away. The locals called him Friendo, town legend, the defunct mascot of an old syrup factory. But as I moved through the fair, I kept catching him in my peripheral vision, lurking behind booths near the bonfire. Every time I looked directly, he would vanish. There, by the corn maze entrance, I grabbed my cousin Evan's arm. Friendo stood still as a statue, staring. Evan, annoyed, hurled a rock. It smacked right into his forehead. Blood immediately started running down his face, mixing with the white makeup. Friendo didn't scream or flinch. He just stood there, letting the blood soak his clothes, before silently walking back into the crowd. We knew we had made a terrible mistake. By midnight, We were cutting through the cornfield to go home. The fog had rolled in thick as a shroud. Halfway through, we heard the laughter, raspy and broken, like someone gargling glass. It echoed from behind us, closer. We turned. A tall, distorted shape shambled towards us, Friendo. The blood had dried black on his face, and he was holding something that glinted, an axe. The dark blade bore stains that were not rust. His painted smile was now stretched impossibly wide. "Run," Evan gasped. We bolted. Behind us, Friendo's laughter grew louder and more excited. He was enjoying the hunt. That horrible giggling and crashing through the cornrows were getting closer. We burst onto the main road, sprinting towards the town lights. I looked back. Friendo stood at the edge of the field, axe at his side. He wasn't following. He just watched, the fog swirling around him as if he were part of it. My grandfather went pale when we told him, "You boys stay away from that festival. Some traditions in this town are better left alone." I never found out who Friendo really was, but now one thing. I'm never spending another Halloween in Granger Hollow. Story 3. Julia's Embrace. Cole dragged me to a Halloween party where Julia would be the girl who had been stalking me for months, leaving bare in chilling gifts like dead birds wrapped in black cloth. She was completely unhinged. She was dressed as Aunt Gladys, her makeup like rotting, cracked skin clinging to bone. Her red contacts glowed like coals. I tried to ignore the razor-sharp feeling of her stare. Around midnight, she cornered me. "Dance with me, Eric," she purred in a raspy voice. "Stay away. You can't fight what's meant to be." I slipped out, heading home alone. 3 blocks away, the streetlights began to flicker wildly. I turned the corner, and there she was, same rotting costume, but her eyes were now pitch black. Not just the pupils, the entire eye, as if someone had poured ink into them. "We need to finish this," she stated. She grabbed my wrist. Her skin was ice cold, her grip bruised. "English strong. You don't get to choose," she hissed. Before I could react, she grabbed a fistful of my hair, pulling hard enough to rip strands out by the roots. She produced a twisted, thorn-veered piece of wood, wrapped my hair around it, and began chanting in a language I didn't recognize. Her voice deepened with each word, as if something else was speaking through her. "You're in, Eric," she whispered, body and soul. The twig burned hot near my chin, and she snapped it in half while chanting. The air around us thickened. "You're insane," I screamed, finally shoving her away. "I'd rather die than be with you. That can be arranged," she giggled, lunging with the broken twig, thorns aimed at my eyes. I ran. Behind me, her footsteps weren't running, they were a sick, skipping rhythm, like she was dancing. I glanced back. She was moving wrongly. Her head was tilted at an angle that should have broken her neck, and she was gaining ground. I burst out onto the main street, my building 2 blocks away. The skipping and giggling were right behind me. At the corner, she was feet away, grinning that horrible stretched smile. I shoved an elbow into her ribs, heard a crack, and bolted, throwing every lock on my door. The next morning, Cole called. Julia had been found unconscious at 3 a.m. with a severe head injury. She was in the hospital with total amnesia. The doctors said her memory loss might be permanent. Cole said there was human hair and some kind of burned wood scattered around where they found her. I touched the sore spot on my scalp. If she couldn't remember me, maybe the nightmare was finally over.